Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lynn Hayes, and this week we're going to talk about the astrological influences for the upcoming week. We're looking at the week of June 22nd to the 29th, and there has been so much going on all throughout the year. There's a few things I'm going to need to say every week just to make sure if there are new people here that they know about it. But this is a particularly unusual year astrologically, and not just because of COVID-19. This year, between the middle of June and the middle of October, there's going to be between 5 and 7 planets retrograde. And that is extremely unusual to have so many retrogrades for such a long period of time. So what that means is that there's going to be a lot of going back over old territory. A lot of looking back, redoing, revising our ideas for the future. It's going to be, there's not a lot of energy to really propel us forward, to make plans for the future and to really put them in action. So there's going to be a lot of having to redo things. And not that we don't want to try, we always want to try, but I feel like understanding the nature of the energies that are at work will help us to avoid, or to try to avoid, some frustration if we keep knocking our head against a brick wall. You know, we have to kind of keep trying what we feel impelled to do. But this is a challenging year astrologically as well as just in the world. Personally, I feel like those two things are really connected, but it's a really important time. So one of the important things about this time is that the virus has compressed our lives. Our lives are really small now, and many of us are resisting that. We're trying to go back to normal, but the virus is going to likely keep our lives more compressed for quite some time to come. So while our lives are compressed, we're much more limited in what we can do, and we're more kind of stuck with ourselves. You know, any of the personality traits that we don't like about ourselves, they're in our face right now. So we're having to kind of work on ourselves. We have to work on our relationships. Maybe your partner's driving you crazy. I know my single friends are pretty happy right now because they're not having to deal with somebody in their house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But hopefully that's not true for you. Hopefully your own life right now is going well. If you have any comments about that, you can leave them in the comment box. So just looking back a little bit at last week, the summer solstice happened on the 20th, late in the 20th, when the sun moved into Cancer. And shortly after that, we had the new moon in Cancer. So this was a big turning point for a lot of us. Those solstice points are important portals of change and of kind of a shift in focus. And now we are in that next phase. What happens now could be a little confusing because Neptune, the planet of spirituality and creativity and transcendence and magic and bliss, all those wonderful things, but also confusion, illusion, and delusion. It's the planet that inspires us to think outside of the box, or not even to think, to expand our lives beyond the box that we put ourselves in, to have experiences of spiritual connection, spiritual bliss, divine creativity. So Neptune is a wonderful planet. It's turning retrograde on the 23rd. So when a planet turns retrograde, or appears to turn retrograde, obviously planets don't move backwards, but we look at the planets from Earth. So when a planet is appearing to turn retrograde, it's at a standstill for quite some time. And Neptune is a slow-moving planet. It's been at a standstill for about a month. So that's a pretty long time when Neptune is shining this laser beam of Neptunian confusion. Neptune is in its own sign of Pisces, and this is a long discussion that we don't really have time for right now. But Neptune went into Pisces in 2012, and it will be in Pisces until 2025. So we're more than halfway through. But Pisces, being a water sign, Pisces is the sign where we surrender. It's a sign of transcendent experiences, which is the connection with Neptune's influence. So Neptune is very strong in its own sign of Pisces. And it's strong for us right now because it's kind of shining this laser beam where we're really being called to maybe understand the deeper meaning of what's going on. You know, where we can't understand things with our small mind or even with our small vision, we have to develop trust. We have to develop some faith in the process of life. And Pisces actually was originally ruled by Jupiter. So Jupiter and Neptune are connected in this way. Jupiter has to do with where we find meaning in life, and Neptune has to do with finding meaning in something greater than ourselves. So that's really a focus this week with Neptune changing direction. While Neptune is turning retrograde, Venus, which has been retrograde, is turning direct, or it will appear to move forward again on June 25th. Venus, the planet of love and beauty and desire and harmony between people, aesthetic beauty, equanimity, peacefulness. Venus right now is stationary in the sky as it prepares to turn direct. So Venus and Neptune are somewhat related. Venus, I think of Neptune as being a higher octave planet of Venus, where Venus has to do with love and beauty. Neptune has to do with divine compassion and the beauty of transcendence. So that's what's happening right now. This can be a very magical, creative time. It's not going to be a time when we can particularly have a lot of focus or really get stuff done. Mercury has just turned retrograde, and so communication is not happening in the way that it usually does. We may have to go back and redo some of the things that we had thought. We might have to reconsider some of the decisions that we've made. There's a lot going on right now with the planets, and whenever there's this much, this planet turning retrograde, this planet turning direct, it can be difficult to know, well, is this Neptune? Is this Venus? We're not going to really be able to know. Just know there's a lot of planetary activity right now that's working on us to kind of let go and feel more deeply, to connect more deeply with the flow of what's happening and with the things that we can't control. That's been a big lesson of this virus. What can we control and what can we not control? And it's an important lesson that's difficult to learn. So Mars, the planet of action, the planet of activity and desire, is going to be in a challenging square to the north node of the moon on the 26th. The north node of the moon is like a trajectory from the past to the future. And when a planet triggers it with a square, which is a challenging aspect that implies conflict, with Mars squaring the north node, which is the future point, there could be a decision, there could be an important choice. You know, if you take one route, you'll go in one direction. If you take this other route, you'll go in a different direction. Which do you choose? That's going to be the choice that's coming up on the 26th. Maybe the 25th, maybe the 27th. And that's also significant because Mars is going to shift into Aries on the 27th. Mars is at home in Aries. Aries is its own sign. Aries is the sign of adventure and independence and doing things, you know, that we want to do, following our own desires, following our own path. And so Mars in Aries is typically would only last for maybe 5 weeks, but because Mars will be turning retrograde in early July in a few weeks, Mars is going to be retrograde while it's in Aries. So it's going to be in Aries for a very long time. It'll be in Aries between June 27th and January of 2021. So I think I talked about this last week as well. But if you understand your chart, see where Aries is in your chart. And that's the area of your chart where Mars is going to be stimulating action and activity. It's going to be energizing and inspiring you in that area of your chart. So the other important thing that's happening this week is that Jupiter and Pluto, which have been in a conjunction since April, the second phase of those two planets is going to happen on June 27th. So the first phase was in April, and then Jupiter and Pluto moved away from each other, but they were never really more far apart than about 3 degrees. As they come closer together, this intensity of ideological conflict is likely to continue to intensify. The first phase is when we first started seeing so much conflict over the George Floyd murder, over elections, over mask wearing, you know, and this is especially true in the United States because the United States has moved into the era that's approaching the Pluto return. And I'm going to make a whole video about that because that's very significant for those of us in the US. But Jupiter and Pluto right now are coming together. So this has a lot to do with ideologies and the ideologies that we use to create the structures. The two planets are in Capricorn. So the idea of building solid structures that will support us as communities, as individuals. This includes police, it includes corporations, it includes governments, it includes the CDC and the WHO, you know, non-governmental organizations are all Capricornian entities. They're structures that people build. And so with Jupiter conjunct Pluto, the idea of what are the ideologies? What's the meaning behind these organizations? Are they serving us? Do they need to be blown up? We have Pluto here. There's transformation through destruction. The third phase, I don't have this written down, but I'm pretty sure it's in November of this year, the third phase of the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. And there's lots more. I will leave links in the description box to a couple of videos, one being the Astrology of 2020, which I think will be interesting for people to watch. So I think that's a good place to end for this week. I hope you found this useful and helpful, and I'll look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks so much for watching.